as a father that you're preparing for, hence better connected and better prepared, bring that best version of you forward. So when you arrive in fatherhood, you don't feel like you're being dragged around, constantly on call, responding to everybody else's needs. And then when you're tired and upset and frustrated and you try to say something, you immediately get chastised like, well, you didn't have a baby, which is like the ultimate, shut the F up card that us men hear whenever we're having some difficulty with our emotions or some difficulty that we want to express. So being able to build those connections now and build that better relationship, richer relationship with your partner, where you're practicing sharing some of those difficult experiences, you're practicing listening in a non-judgmental, caring, concerning space to what your partner's challenges are. And again, I'm speaking to both partners here. And you're bringing that richer relationship with you into parenthood once baby gets here. That's going to make everything easier for all three of you. If you have twins, all four of you,
Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started. All right, let's get started with our reviewer of the week, which is Frankie's Frolics. So if this is you, thank you for leaving the review. She says, love this podcast. Very informative and something for every mama. Lots of content given on various subjects within birthing. Non-biased and give both sides to certain scenarios to help you make decisions that suit you and your birthing needs best. Great listen. Thank you for that review. And you guys, I'm excited because today I have somebody who has been here with me once before. I'm going to read a little bio about him so you get to know him just a little bit. And then I'm actually going to link our previous podcast. So if you guys want to hear even more great information, you can hit that up in the show notes and listen to both of the podcasts that we've done before. But today I have with me David Arrell, who is an executive coach, consultant, and the author of Welcome to Fatherhood, his passion project for supporting today's fathers as they strive to balance their higher aspirations of genuine self-expression with those of parenting and partnership. David's coaching programs encourage the development of deeper personal authenticity while also building stronger relationships, helping his clients thrive in today's complex landscape of overlapping career, partnership, and parenting challenges. His Welcome to Fatherhood work is specifically designed to help new and expectant dads better connect with their partners and better prepare for what's coming next at each stage of the pregnancy and parenthood journey. He currently lives in Alabama with his wife, Jennifer, their two young children, Dustin and Dottie, and their chocolate lab, Johnny Biscuits. So with that, welcome back to the podcast, David. I'm excited to have you with us today.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks again for having me back on. Looking forward to continuing our conversation here today.
Yeah, for those of you who have been with me for a while, maybe you remember our conversation, but those of you that are new here, he talks to dads, and I think you do an excellent job kind of putting dads in the driver's seat of their experience in regards to pregnancy, birth, and beyond, because I think pregnancy can be kind of a tricky time, and especially for dads. And you guys have heard me talk about this on the podcast before, but we do spend a lot of time, and kind of my goal, obviously, is to prepare moms to be understanding of what is happening during pregnancy and to be prepared for what happens for the labor and birth and postpartum. But in that, and this is why whenever I can, I get a dad on here to share the birth story as well. We've got this second half of us that has helped us create this baby and that moves through this experience with us. And I think David does a great job of filling that gap. That's kind of, I love what you do. I love what you talk about. And I think you do a great job of that, filling that gap, helping dads feel relevant and understanding what their purpose is and what they can do. Because it's for both, right? It's not just for moms. Maybe speak to that a little bit. Like, how are dads involved in the pregnancy and birthing process of all of this?
Yeah, I love the way you mentioned putting dads in the driver's seat of their own experience, because that really dovetails 100% with what my efforts and my contributions to the conversation are oriented to helping them achieve as well. I know for me during our first pregnancy journey, and I see this with so many of the expectant dads I work with, kind of feel like we're being not necessarily dragged along, but we're just sort of, we're in the passenger seat or we're in the co-pilot. Like, our partner's pregnant, we're not. She has her OB appointment. She's, changing her diet. She's getting new clothes and, really looking, at her pregnancy as, baby's here now. Like I tell the guys, your partner is a mom now. And us guys, we tend to look at the world in the sense of a more concrete way, and we'll be dads when baby gets here. So there's a lot of appreciation that I try to bring to the conversation for helping dads understand that they are on a separate journey. They're not pregnant, their partner is. But just because they're on a separate journey doesn't mean that they're not on a journey. And so that's where your driver's seat metaphor, I think, is so apt. And I really want to encourage dads to take ownership of their journey and not just view their participation as happening once baby gets here. And then there's a lot we can unpack in that. But I definitely want to just sort of really, sync up with your approach to getting dads in the driver's seat of their journey, of their experience, and looking to really embody and inhabit that driver's seat, and that it's an active process, not just a passive process.
Yeah, I like that. And kind of with that, maybe my follow-up question here is, how can these new expectant dads, how can they feel like they are being supportive and also supported along the way in these journeys?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's really the challenge, I think, that, again, so many of the dads in the expectant side of the equation were told to be, helpful and supportive. And I kind of joke a lot about that phrase because for a lot of us guys, it just does right. That's why I'm standing here. I want to be helpful and supportive, but what does that mean? What does that look like? And so with my work, I kind of try to make that simple. And we can share the resource here of all the different dad tips. And I can share a link for your listeners just to get the list of what the dad tips are. But it's very specific things. Like, one of the things I talk about is making sure you're being active and signing up for a birth class together with your partner. Or if you're looking at hiring a doula, hire a doula. Like, there's opportunities to be active here. And so I try to give them very specific things to do. Own the gift registry as you're tracking these presents that are coming in. These are things you can do to be an active participant in your pregnancy, because it's yours too. This is your child coming along. But also there's the appreciation of your partner's journey and really connecting with her in a way that she feels like you're in this together. She feels that you still need to be on your own journey and to be aware that you're not going to have the same exact appreciation, but showing up with that anticipation, that excitement, using that we language of our baby. I'm excited to be on this journey with you as we work forward together. I think that's one of the key things I'd like to emphasize in this conversation today is the importance for the guys to really buttress and invest in that relationship with your partner, because you're going to be co-parents together once baby gets here. She may be carrying the baby, but you are on this parenting journey here together. And once baby gets here, nothing is easier then. So this is the time to really, as the tagline of my work says, better connect with your partner and better prepare for what's coming next.
Yeah, you mentioned in that, of course, I have to bring this up, but I want to hear from a guy's perspective. And knowing that you talked to gentlemen about this as well, you mentioned the birth course being a priority and possibly hiring a doula. Will you tell us a little bit about why and kind of what dad's role is with that? Because I always joke that, right, when I taught birth classes in person and I would go around and like, all right, dads, like how many of you are here of your own accord, or like how many got dragged by their wives, and, all the hands are up. Like, I'm here because I love her. She told me to come.
Right.
But later in the class, I feel like they're like, oh, okay, yeah, like I get it. Like there's a reason to be here. But will you talk about that a little bit? And then also that doula role and how, because I know even my husband was like, I don't want to hire a doula. She's going to take over my job that I've been like trained for this whole time that you've been training me for. Like, why would I do that? So will you speak to those?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm guilty as charged. Like when our first pregnancy, the birth class, the whole idea was preposterous. Like I couldn't think of a reason I needed a birth class. I'm not having a baby. What am I going to, I mean, I'm mildly interested in when the baby starts, peeing inside the uterus or when their eyelashes start growing, but it's got zero cash value to me, zero like practical value. And there's also the not say argument, but a perspective that, humans have been having babies for hundreds of thousands of years. We all got here by being born. So what do we need to take a class for? So all of my reasons against were all valid in the sense of that's true. I'm not having a baby and everybody's been born and all these animals are born and nobody's taking zebras aren't taking birth classes. But that all of them is true and 100% misses the point, which is better connect with your partner. So our culture here in the US does a pretty terrible job of bringing light into the non-medical aspects of childbirth, of pregnancy, of shifting into parenthood. For us guys, going from the dude zone to the dad zone is a language I talk about. For women going from maidenhood to motherhood, these are tremendous rites of passage and tremendous opportunities to really blossom into the next phase of our lives as people. And so much of pregnancy is looked at as a medical condition, and that's not false, but it's a small sliver of the total thing. So from a birth class perspective, there's a reason that we're offering these and they're being so sought after is because we're no longer living in a sort of swimming in the water of a culture that has a very coherent appreciation of what does pregnancy mean? What do we do? What are the rights, rituals, responsibilities, roles? It's all sort of amorphous and up in the air. And so the moms to be are like, what do we do? I don't know. They didn't grow up surrounded by other women having babies constantly and a culture that has a very coherent, consistent approach to pregnancy and childhood. And us guys are even further afield in that we're like, I have no idea what any of this is. So I don't know what's going on here. So the birth class will focus on some of the things you can expect as you go forward in the better prepare sense of the half of my tagline, like what's coming up next? What does labor look like? So there is some good learning to happen from a medical technical standpoint, but it's much more important from my perspective of being in that shared, that's a bridge you can build across your separate journeys from your pregnant partner, speaking to the women's side, and for us guys, that birth class is a connecting buttress on that bridge of what your relationship looks like heading forward into parenting. And it also reinforces the fact that we're both here together on this journey as parents. And from a bonding, connective, shared experience, shared appreciation, and shared learning standpoint, it's invaluable. Much more valuable, in my opinion, than the birth class. And again, there's a lot of different kinds out there, is hiring a doula. You mentioned your husband was a little bit reluctant. I too was reluctant the first go around. I wasn't so much concerned about being replaced because I really didn't know what I was going to be doing besides holding my, rubbing Jen's, forehead or holding her hand. But just I don't what do they do? They don't do the medical. So what do they do? As if it was that or nothing, And what I learned and what was so valuable to me as a dad going through labor, which can be kind of scary when our partner's screaming and sweating and struggling and hours going by, what do we do here? Having that doula for me was invaluable for both my son's birth and my daughter's birth. Having somebody there as my wingman that could kind of help me better connect with my partner, help me by saying, David, go get a cup of coffee. I'll hang out here. I got it. You can go get this. You can go do that. Or David, please do this. It was invaluable. And so it's the strongest recommendation I make in my books. For all the dad tips, I kind of offer it in the sense of, hey, this worked for me. Maybe you can try it. Let me know if it works for you. It's more of a conversation and a curiosity of I hope this is helpful because I found it helpful and it's something I wish somebody had told me that nobody told me. But dad tip number 7 is, dude, hire a doula. I'm very emphatic and encouraging. And I think there's an invaluable skill. And doulas are some of my favorite people. Every time it's one of our children's birthday We text a picture of them with their cake to the doula that was there for their birth. Like, hey, we're remembering how important you were in our journey that got us here today. So it's again, super strong recommendation. You're making your birth team stronger by bringing a doula in to help you. And it's not a replacement. That whole conversation, again, is from the place of guys that just don't get it, which is the land we live in through the pregnancy journey for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I love once you have that experience, because I started bringing my husband into my birth classes because we did have a doula for my third, and he was like, same thing. Everybody hire a doula. Like you're dumb if you don't. It was so helpful.
Right.
But yeah, I love hearing like the after perspective where you're like, yes, this is so good, and getting it and then sharing it with other men. Like this actually does happen. Like my husband, like I'm sure you do, like you talk with other people about these things and it gets shared through the men, which I think is really powerful. I think that's awesome. But something that you talk about too has to do with like the emotional journey that the men go on, which I absolutely love this. I love that you talk about this. Tell me a little bit about the struggles that men see, that emotional journey, those emotional struggles during fatherhood or becoming a father. And what they can do to work through those emotions and who can they reach out to for help?
Yeah, the emotional journey, I would say the emotional aspect of the journey, I think is really indicative of the enormous opportunity and life-transforming experience that fatherhood is, hence the name of my work, Welcome to Fatherhood. This is a new reality. This isn't a additive experiencing of like, oh, it's just me and my partner now plus baby, this little 10-pound bundle right here. That's not the case. It's a total transformational experience. And I think where guys struggle is that they don't understand they're in a transformational experience. They think they're in an additive experience. It's like, oh, I want to keep doing all the same things, or I'm going to keep trying to make the rest of my old life work in my new life as a parent and as a partner with a mom versus my partner before she became a mom. And it's just a very different reality. And so what I would like to invite the guys out there to do is to look at this as an opportunity to really grow personally and invest in your own, what I call your sacred individuality. What's really you? What's the core you? What are the things that you really want to bring forth into fatherhood that are important to you, that are a deeper part of your being and something that is more core? But then also, how can you address and embrace the opportunity in relationship to really bounce forward and rebuild or build anew the relationship with your partner as parents? Because she's going to be a different person. You're a different person. So that's the no bouncing back, we're only bouncing forward mindset I bring to the conversation to really encourage the guys to not look at, oh, I'm going to go back to doing this once things settle down. It's like, well, maybe, but why don't we look at it instead as like, is this something that is really important to me? And what's a way I can continue to invest in what's really true to me while also investing in my relationship with my partner, and of course, investing in my relationship with my baby, getting my skin to skin time, stepping into all the caretaking from day one, building those shared behaviors that facilitate trust and foster an awareness of our role as parents here together, to really lean into that. And that's what Dad Zone Thriving is. That's kind of like the aspirational goal of my work, is helping those guys really thrive in the Dad Zone by looking at how they're taking care of themselves and feeling good about that, but also looking to their partner in conversation with a partner. How am I showing up as a partner, as a parent, and feeling good about that? And so that's all the unknown territory for each of us guys, just as it is for moms. Like, we all need to grow into that territory and have our own learning experience, our own opportunities to rewrite the story of who we are and what we're doing on the planet, when, why, and who, and what all the priorities are. So reaching out for people who have been there a little bit ahead of you can be sometimes a lot more helpful than reaching out to some much older expert. Like, you may ask your dad, I'm speaking as a guy, I may ask my dad what his experience was like as a new father, but that was a long time ago. So why not ask the guys that are 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year in? And to kind of bring one of the circles back here, that's one of the great things that you're going to find in a birth class. Ideally, you're taking a birth class with other people that are in your immediate area. I mean, online birth classes are great, but an in-person one is so much more helpful in that it allows you to meet other people that are in the same phase of their life as you are. Some of them are going to have babies a few days, weeks ahead of you. Some will be behind you, but you're like a cohort here. There's a real team sense going through and allows you to sort of connect with people that can offer you advice or offer you experience or share their experience. And it's always fun having the graduation picture 6 months after the birth class ends and everybody's got their new babies and you have like all of you are right there. But these are people that can be your new cohort of that are just a few weeks ahead of you. Hey, what did you do for this? What did you do for that? There's the great online resources. I feel like I'm a pretty good resource in the work I have is to offer, but rather than trying to figure out how to invent a crappy wheel, why not go look to see where there's some other wheels that are actually working pretty well and get some advice on those. I don't know why we all tend to want to just struggle our way into these experiences rather than relying on or leaning onto the expertise of others. But there's so much here for dads that are opportunities now, whether it's hiring a doula to be the expert in the room with you rather than just figuring you're going to wing it for the next 36 hours through labor and delivery. Why would you do that by yourself? Why would you try to just struggle through fatherhood or struggle through connecting with your partner or supporting your brand new baby without getting some good advice and feedback and guidance from the guys who are just, again, a little bit in front of you, who maybe have learned some things they can share to make your life a little bit easier?
Yeah, I think actually everything you said was really important, but also a lot of it relates to moms too. As you're talking and I'm like, that's why we send women to La Leche League. It's like there are other women breastfeeding right now, just a little bit ahead of you that can say,
right,
that's totally normal, or here's what I did. And all of a sudden you're like, I can do this. So
exactly.
I love that. I also like that moms get a chance to understand kind of what dads are going through too. As you're talking about this and I totally understand, not in a negative way, but understand that there's a disconnect for men that until the baby's born, but mom has these 9 months of I feel my baby kick, and you're constantly thinking about it and how you're going to take care of him, and you're asking questions, and it's just becoming a part of you. But understanding that it would be different for dads. And then once that baby's born, it's not on purpose, but all of a sudden I have expectations, because I'm doing all these things. So you should be doing all these things. And here's what I need. But if we're not communicating that, then it can make it a little bit tricky. And so doing that prior to having a baby, I think is just so important. But I love that. I love understanding where dads are coming from in the meantime. I think that gives us a lot of power as couples to be able to kind of work on that relationship and understand each other prior to baby being there. It's a different world, and you don't there's no explaining it. There's no describing it. There's no you can't truly understand it until you're in it, but you can do your best to at least have really good communication and work on your relationship prior to that really big change happening. So,
yeah. And Stephanie, a point I want to explore a bit deeper here with you is that idea. And this is why I value your contribution here so much, is bringing some awareness that we do have expectations. And especially for a lot of the moms to be that are already being a mom when they're pregnant, they're very actively taking care of baby now. They're watching their diet, and they're not drinking, and no caffeine and all the things. So they are already transforming into motherhood, whereas us guys are just not. It's just not. We're not transforming to fatherhood until baby gets here. And where I really want to draw a bright line here is that's 100% okay. We need to be allowed to have our separate journeys, encouraged to have our separate journeys, and we can start to have conversations about those journeys with each partner bringing an awareness that the journeys are separate, an appreciation for the integrity of their partner's journey, and a curiosity of hey, how's that going for you? And then a willingness to use, we joke, the way we treat, our children, oh, please use your words. We do that with each other also. It's you can have these hidden expectations or these hopes, but it's not fair to evaluate your partner on how well they're meeting your unexpressed request, your hidden hopes and your unexpressed expectations. That's a bad game. Nobody should be wanting to play that game. So I encourage collaboration through these conversations, like you mentioned, hey, to my wife and I, again, I was terrible as a partner during the first pregnancy because I was locked into the dude zone. But I would be like, hey, how you feeling today? And like, she looked fine. So I was kind of listening. And she was like, well, how are you feeling? I'm like, well, I'm doing great. Not pregnant, So it's a different experience, bringing that knowledge and having a greater willingness to share the interior questions, concerns, doubts. And this is why I often joke with some of the guys when I'm starting one of my groups, like, guys, newsflash, we're all humans. And it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be messy. It's okay to not know how you feel and what's going on. It's okay to sort of just start a sentence and just kind of trail off if you don't know where you're going. A lot of us don't have a high fluency in our internal emotional states the way we've been encultured. Like, anger's good, funny's better, sadness, maybe for a few minutes, buddy, but I'm just trying to drink a beer over here. Like, I'll give you 3 minutes, but I'm not here to mope and whine or whatever. Like, that's what we're encultured into. So for guys, it can be a little bit more challenging. And thankfully, the younger men coming up behind us are having a lot more experience of being invited to talk about their feelings, share their feelings, experience their feelings. And so that's where I feel, and during pregnancy, these are some of the exercises I encourage couples to do, is to have some opportunities to sit down and frankly share your feelings, be invited to share your feelings and invite the other person to share theirs, and just remain in a space of curiosity. Like, I don't like when somebody says, well, I don't think you should feel that way. It's like, no, well, you're not entitled. I don't want to hear what you think, how I should feel. I can be confused. I can be confident. I can be concerned. I can be worried. And our relationship in the ideal world is a place where we can freely share those things and have the other person genuinely hear it and then be curious about it and invite us to share more. And those are those bonds of connecting, is sharing our experience in those more difficult moments. And it's okay if a guy's like, I'm Dave, I generally am like, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm not worried. My wife is doing great. Our birth team seems great. I don't know. I'll be a dad when baby gets here. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm like, fine, that's great. How's your partner doing? Bring some curiosity to her experience. Invite her to share, whether it's, if most pregnant moms I've spoken with have a range of anxiety, of concerns, of worries. They're momming up their baby. They can't see baby. They're doing their best and they don't know. And not knowing is a very anxious producing situation, of whether it's a medical diagnosis, your pregnancy, or if it's going to rain when you're at the Little League game. Like, I don't know. It's kind of worry inducing. And so being able to hold space for that and appreciate and respect it, and to be present with that experience and not show up as a fixer or shifter or whatever, be like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. If I was pregnant, I'd probably be pretty nervous too. Like, there's a way to connect in an approach that's much more sympathetic and empathetic, that will serve you as a father for your baby, who's not going to be able to use their words to tell you what's going on. And you're going to have a lot of experiences there coming up too. So this is a good chance to kind of lean into that softer side, the more intuitive and empathetic, appreciative side, that's going to be so much more helpful and a part of your relationship bouncing forward into fatherhood and with your partner when she becomes a mother.
Yeah, I think what you were talking about, kind of remaining curious, is really important. And I think it leaves a lot open. I don't know. I feel like it just makes it such an easier conversation when you're just thinking about being curious about how the other person's feeling. Something that you brought up had to do with like how your life will change as a father once baby's here, and talking about those core things, like what really matters to you, what really makes you happy or is who you are. Like, you don't want to lose this piece of you. And I think what a great question to ask each other. Like, what are you doing now in your life that's bringing you a lot of joy that you don't want to lose, come fatherhood? Like, do you still want to take weekend trips for fishing or whatever it is, But I find, even for myself, a couple years into mothering, and we had our babies pretty close together, every 14 months I was pregnant again for 3 years or for 3 babies, I guess. And At the end of that. And I'm just like, I'm swallowed up in diapers and life. And I love being a mom, but I felt like I was losing myself. And I would imagine it would be the same thing for dads. If you don't have something to call your own or that piques your interest, or that you've got some like just energy that you can put somewhere else. And also get back, you kind of end up losing yourself, and you end up frustrated and just feeling like you're in the thick of it at all times, and kind of alone. So I love the curiosity provoking questions, or just being curious about each other, so that we don't lose ourselves along the way, and so that we grow together. And I think too, asking those kinds of questions shows that you love them and you're interested in what they're interested in, and that you care, and it allows them to be vulnerable. So I just love that. I love the conversation we're having today, because I think it's so beneficial. And I know I'm a little bit older now. I'm a little bit farther along, with having babies and being married. And you can see the true benefit in these things when you're younger and in the thick of it, it can be harder to see. And so hearing some of those things and utilizing it is such a benefit to both moms and dads. I did want to ask too, along with that, it makes me curious, what are some things that dads worry about? And we've kind of talked about some of the things that moms worry about, being anxious about labor, or, like, is my husband going to make enough money that I can stay home, or am I going to have to go back to work, or is breastfeeding going to work? And is my baby okay? We've got all those things. I know I've asked my husband a couple of times some things that he was worried about. He actually went through some postpartum depression, which I've talked about on this podcast before, because we don't talk about that, or that's not brought up. But men totally can go through this as well. Their life is changing in such a dramatic way. So what are some of those things that moms and dads need to be aware of, that men are kind of dealing with, that we can talk about during pregnancy?
Yeah, I love your approach of having those conversations earlier and during pregnancy, rather than waiting until everything kind of starts crashing down, or the tension or pressure gets so much higher once baby gets here, and you're sort of like dragged into those conversations, or they become explosive, or otherwise much harder. Everything is harder once baby gets here, including difficult conversations about how you're feeling. So I love the idea. I often recommend, when I catch guys on the pregnancy side, is to start viewing the things that you and your partner do together that really is part of your bonding as a relationship. For my wife and I, it was going out to eat food. We met in Philadelphia, and a big part of our dating was going out to all the restaurants and going here and going there. And the food scene there is phenomenal. And so when we joked that when she met me, I had like a cereal bowl and some cereal and a bunch of cashews, and I ate all my meals out, because I was living downtown, and that was way easier than cooking. And the first time she was looking to cook something in my house, she's like, "Where are your pans?" I was like, maybe over there. I think I bought some 3 years ago. So the idea being, like, identifying those things that really are a heartfelt we space that you both enjoy doing together, and has become some of the deeper structures of your relationship. And then imagine, how can we continue to do this when baby arrives, and as a toddler? We liked we had these little scooter mopeds we used to ride around on. Obviously, that was not going to be something we were going to bring into new parenthood. A little sidecar with a baby, that wasn't going to happen. We enjoy going for walks and spending time together. So we were like, oh, we can do this. And so we mapped out some little walks in our new neighborhood that we started taking as she was in her third trimester, when walking is much more of a physical adventure, and it's less about, how far we go, but how long are we going here? So we were able to start building some good dating patterns in late pregnancy that we were able to bring with us into early parenthood. So we were able to go on those same walks around the 2 blocks with a stroller and baby, or wearing baby, which is one of my absolute favorite things. I recommend to all dads, quick shout out for baby wearing as a new dad. 100% recommend, right up there with hire a doula, is get some sort of baby wearing contraption. It's amazing, perfect bonding. It's just great. But do these things in your late pregnancy that you can carry forth into early parenthood to allow you to better bridge that transition from the dude zone to the dad zone, and from pregnancy into parenthood, by having those bonds of relationship connecting behaviors that you can bring with you. So that would be a strong thing I would emphasize there. Something else I'll mention briefly here is the idea that in early parenthood, a lot of the dads I speak with that are struggling are totally wrapped up in their role identity. As if you think of all the words, dad, partner, father, parent, all those are relational roles where you're invisible. I'm a dad, which means the kid is primary. If I'm a dad, dad to who? Dad to what? Partner to who? Partner to what? We are, all these labels have us as in a peripheral supporting role, which are true, but partial. And that's why a big part of my focus is what's your sacred individuality? What's really you? What's your personal growth here? What's your aspirations on not how to be necessarily a great father or partner, those are important, but how to be a better you? How are you going to show up and strengthen your character, deepen your resolve, show up as a better, brighter version of you through the opportunity presented as fatherhood, to really allow the guys to have some of the spotlight, remain on themselves, some of their care, concern, some of their priorities, their time, money, energy on themselves, and not just passive entertainment. Like, who am I? I'm the guy that's going to go play trivia and drink beer every Friday night. Well, maybe, but is that really, what's really sacred about that? What's your deeper calling, your deeper core aspiration? And you're not going to find it in the culture. The culture is aimed at advertising stuff to single 18 to 35-year-olds. So you're not going to get some good examples of what does it mean to be a better version of you through the cultural commercials and advertising. So you're going to have to discover that through your relationships with wise elders. This is where your father or your uncle or some of the older men in your community could be a good touchstone. But really bringing that best version of you forward and then start to work on doing that now. Like, now is the time to plant the seeds of the better you that you want to be bringing forth later. And what does that better you look like on your own terms? And then also, what does that better you look like as a partner in a relationship, as a father that you're preparing for, hence better connected and better prepared? Bring that best version of you forward so when you arrive in fatherhood, you don't feel like you're being dragged around, constantly on call, responding to everybody else's needs. And then when you're tired and upset and frustrated and you try to say something, you immediately get chastised like, well, you didn't have a baby, which is like the ultimate, shut the F up card that us men hear whenever we're having some difficulty with our emotions or some difficulty that we want to express. So being able to build those connections now and build that better relationship, richer relationship with your partner, where you're practicing sharing some of those difficult experiences, you're practicing listening in a non-judgmental, caring, concerning space to what your partner's challenges are. And again, I'm speaking to both partners here. And you're bringing that richer relationship with you into parenthood once baby gets here. That's going to make everything easier for all three of you. If you have twins, all four of you,
Yeah, that's solid. I'm so excited about this podcast. I can't wait for this to go live. I feel like you're dropping all the gold nuggets and it's awesome. With that, and no pressure, because you've given a ton of good advice today, I kind of wanted to end asking you if you could give like your top 3 tips to dads out there. What would those be?
Great question. Those tips tend to change depending on what my recent experience has been and what I've learned over the years. Number one tip I would encourage, and this is equally applicable for the moms and dads, but I would encourage, and this is your metaphor of in the driver's seat, is to step into and take ownership over your experience, your reality, your opportunity, your life, and really look at how you can show up as a leader in the relationship. Not leader of, or not the boss, you're not the father knows best, but what I mean by being a leader in the relationship is understand that you're expected to be contributing from an agency point of view, ideas, activities, actions. Like, you need to be a leader in the relationship as much as your partner is, so you guys can be equal pilots, not chief pilot, co-pilot, or pilot passenger. Like, so many of the guys I see in their first pregnancy, they're being dragged along, the clock's turning, the calendar's flipping, the weeks are happening. And it's weeks, not months. That's how you want to measure the pregnancy, to be connected with your partner, because that's what she's doing. You want to be aware of the opportunity for you to step up and be a leader in that relationship. So that would be number one. Number two, really invest in taking time to be curious with yourself. What are your true higher aspirations for fatherhood? What are your personal growth goals look like? What do you want to transform into as a father to a baby, but also as a partner to a mother? That's going to be a different relationship. So the time, it's like real estate. The best time to buy real estate was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So the best time to be thinking about how you want to show up, how you want to be in the world as a father is yesterday, and the second best time is today. Like, start doing this now. Don't wait till a baby gets here, like so many of us guys tend to default into, and figure it out when baby gets here. It's not going to be easier, man. I mean, sure, there are certain realities you won't be able to figure out how your baby soothes until they get here. But that's a small percentage of what does it really mean to be a parent and a father. It's much more about the mindset and how you want to show up in the world. And that's the work you can start doing today. The final thing I'll mention as my tip would be to really try to appreciate the depth of the transformational journey your partner's going on. As guys, we can just kind of show up one day and be on the pregnancy journey. And then we can show up another day, 9 months later, and be fathers. And there's ways, like for especially like military families, like my wife is active duty Air Force. A lot of the guys are deployed, so they're not really able to participate in that journey. But as for mothers, every day it's a new experience. Like you mentioned earlier, feeling the kicks, feeling the little flutters, noticing the way your body is changing or your food preferences and your smells. These are powerfully transformative. You are becoming a different being as you're growing. I'm speaking to the moms here. And for the guys, really take time to lean into and appreciate the contours of that experience, but also the depth of significance of what does it mean for your partner to be on this journey of becoming a mother. And that's where that curiosity we've spoken about a couple times really comes into play. Like a genuine curiosity will be spoken to and will land in a way that you will always be surprised and appreciative with whatever answer you get if you show up with genuine curiosity. So to ask your partner, like, hey, like, what does becoming a mother mean to you? Like, what are you really excited about? What are you excited about looking forward to for next week or next month? And be curious. And I think, and this is my last point here, Stephanie, a good way to do that, as I mentioned, alluded to earlier about the weeks, is to make time to sit down with your partner. And again, speaking to the guys here, and whatever the apps are out there these days, whatever the books are these days that do the week by week analysis, the apps are great because you get little videos and they compare growing baby to like French pastries or small exotic animals or whatever. But if you can make that weekly sit down with your partner and like, oh, we're at 19 weeks. What are we going to learn this week? We're at 20 weeks. What are we going to learn this week? We're at 21 weeks. And if you can start to schedule that and treat it with the proper degree of excitement, respect, appreciation, and connecting opportunity that it is, as well as getting prepared, that's going to go a long way to really help you and your partner be on that same page. And it's a natural setup for you then to express curiosity about how she's doing with the information or her experience as compared to what's being discussed in the little video. So it gives you some easy prompts and conversation starters rather than you just having to say, how are you feeling today? So it's a much more focused approach that will be a great tool for you for all kinds of things.
Well, thank you for your time today. Thank you for all of your amazing tips and everything. And for those of you that are listening, David, you actually have something for our listeners. So will you talk about that and then tell everybody where they can reach you? And remember that all this information will be in the show notes. So make sure that you check it out at myessentialbirth.com/podcast.
Yeah, you can find me at www.welcometofatherhood.com. You can always email me, david@welcometofatherhood.com. I love getting the emails. I love getting the questions. I answer them all myself. I don't have an AI assistant or anybody else. So you're getting my genuine, heartfelt responses. And always look forward to hearing from listeners out there and what's worked and what hasn't worked from some of the material we've talked about here today.
Did you want to talk about the video course right now too?
Yeah, so we have the brand new video, Welcome to Fatherhood video course. Happily share discount code MEB30 with your listeners. The course has several different packages where I break down all the different dad tips and big ideas covered in my work. Some of the packages include some coaching. I have the dude zone to dad zone mapping exercise that a lot of the guys have felt been so valuable in helping them stay on their path to dad zone thriving. But MEB30 gets you 30% off the course at any of the tiers there that you like.
Awesome. Thank you, David. So appreciate your time today and your wisdom. And I'm just grateful that you were able to join us again. So thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Always a pleasure connecting.
If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.